name's AG. I'd like to welcome you to my channel. With this video, I want to discuss a little bit about some of the shows that I did and give you a little information on all that. Before I get started though, I want to tell you a little story. In June of 2014, I was actually hit by a semi at a landfill. Totaled my truck while I was inside the cab. After 2.5 years of treatment, I went to a doctor, asked him, where am I at, whatnot. He said he doesn't know when I'll get better. So I said, you don't know me. So I got up and left and went straight to a gym. And no, I wasn't going to the gym at that point. I was working all the time. I go to the gym and I put 365 on. At the time in my life, 355 was the most I ever lifted. So I got under there so angry and upset that I actually pushed 365 twice. Okay, when I came out from underneath that weight, I started crying and I said, I have to figure out something to turn this anger into something positive. What I ended up doing is I went home and I started watching motivational videos. I mentioned in my first video, Machiavelli, Joe Rogan, David Goggins. From there, I started watching all the influencers that are in the fitness world that I mentioned as well in my first video. Hopefully you wrote all that down because these people are incredible. So now what I want to do is I want to go through each show, my very first show, and just give you a little quick rundown of what I went through. Okay, now I'd like to talk about my first show. I'm going to put up a few pictures here for you to look at. As you can see, I ended up getting my pro card, my first go around, my first show, which was nice. Also got most muscular for that show. I lost 60 pounds from where I started. I ate mostly, for protein, I ate mostly pork and steak, and then for a side, or should I say carbohydrates, I ate salads and vegetables. Had very low energy the last month leading up to it. I did about the average amount of water, a gallon a day. During peak week, I did cut carbs for about 3 days, and then I ate a dirty meal Friday night for the show, and I felt like shit leading into the show. After the show, 3 days after that, I did gain 30 pounds. Now my second show, 3 months after my first show. Obviously, I lost the 30 pounds that I needed to. I came in about 180, 185. I did think size mattered at that point, so I didn't concentrate on cardio. I mostly concentrated on lifting heavy. I did have a lot of low energy during the last month before the show, but it seemed to be a common theme for me, mostly probably because I ate salads and vegetables for my side. After the show, I too gained another 30 pounds in 3 days. And that became another common theme. As you can see from these pictures, compared to this pro next to me, unbelievable how shredded these guys are in the natural world. My third show was my very first Olympia. Didn't place at all in this show. I did come in at about 175, where the show before that, I came in last place at 185. I don't even know my placing for this show, but as you look, you can tell that I definitely came in more conditioned. Again, my proteins were the same, my carbs were the same, my energy was low, water is about the same. I did start cutting salt in this one the last 2 days and drank a whole lot more water the last 2 days. And then I added salt the day of the show. Again, at the end of the show, as you can see these pictures, I look pretty good, but at the end of this show, 3 days later, I put on another 30 pounds. Then my fourth show was in Dallas, and that was in the middle, I think May of 2019. I was going against a guy that asked me to come to the show to do the show. I ended up winning the show, but I don't know if you actually win the show if you're the only guy in it. But anyway, at this show, I got down to like 175. Again, the energy was low the last month. Protein, the carbohydrates was all the same. I still did the gallon of water. I cut carbs this time and then added carbs, but I didn't do anything with salt. Again, at the end of this show, I gained 30 pounds. My fifth show was the second Olympia that I did. Obviously, I was concerned with conditioning at this point because I was well aware of these pros and how incredibly conditioned they are. So I got down to 160 in this show. But I also cut salt for 3 days, did 4 hours of cardio the last 4 days. Water-wise, drank a lot of water, became constipated so bad that I had to use all the things that you use to be able to have a bowel movement, and I still struggled. Stomach, I felt like absolute shit, but I was incredibly shredded. I ended up placing third in the world, 50 and over, Grandmaster at my second Olympia. Again, as you can see from the pictures, I look great, but again, as I tell you, I gained 30 pounds after the show. So as I look at all these shows, some of the things that I actually can take away from this is that one peak week is way overrated. You know what I mean? Water, salt, you really don't need to change that. If you're conditioned and in shape, you'll do fine. So after my 5th show, I got in a car accident. Actually didn't train all of 2020. I started training again, and I went and did an NPC show. My last show was an NPC show in Tampa, Florida. Well, actually, it was in St. Petersburg, but it was called the Tampa Pro, Hurricane Pro. Came second in middleweight, as you can see from the pictures. Second in middleweight, third in 30 and over, or 15 over. I had never, this time though, I had all kinds of different proteins that I ate. Didn't eat pork, didn't eat steak, and also my carbs were specifically starch. That's it. I didn't do salads, I didn't do vegetables, I ate starch. I also noticed that after my show, my energy was high all the way up into my show, through my show. After the show, I did not gain any weight. I didn't gain any weight for months. In fact, I'm just now recently starting to actually gain weight. I came in at 174, and I think I'm 185, 187 currently. Water, okay, I want to touch on water. A lot of times, more the merrier, but here's the thing for me, sleep is so important. If I started actually drinking over 1.25 gallons, I start interrupting my sleep at night. So for me, there is no benefit that outweighs my sleep, especially when I'm thinking 1.25 gallons compared to what? 2 gallons, 1.5 gallons? I don't see the rewards for actually trying to drink more water. No, I don't do diuretics either whatsoever. So the biggest thing that I can tell you that made probably the biggest difference for me is every time I did the other shows, the first 5 shows, I picked a date and then I pressed to go do that show. This last show that I did well, I looked my best, and mostly because I got ready, then I looked for a show. If you're ever wanting to compete, trust me, get ready for yourself, then go look for a show. You'll do so much better, you'll feel so much better, and your peak week doesn't have to be tweaked so much. So one more thing that I want to kind of add from the beginning that kind of turned into probably, I don't know if it was a good or bad thing. In the end, I think it was kind of a bad thing. I would talk myself into being angry to work out initially. And I felt that when I was pissed, I could actually do more. And that means, train harder, heavier, whatnot. What I also figured out is the madder I could get at a certain level, I actually believe 100% that I was able to activate my sympathetic nervous system and add adrenaline into my workout. Now, I think we've all done those sets where towards the end, it's a good set and you hold your breath, and when you're done, you kind of like shaking a little bit, and you feel the euphoria of what you've done, right? Whereas you activate your sympathetic nervous system and then you actually include adrenaline, because that's mostly what I felt. What I felt was like I'd come out of a weight and I'd be shaking. I'd feel the euphoria, but I wouldn't feel like I couldn't move around.